so you don't miss more videos like this one.
In 1941, Albina Malihočevar, at just 16 years old, became a member of the Slovenian People's Liberation Movement. At 17, while fighting as part of the resistance against the Nazi occupation, she was wounded twice. Return of a German soldier from Soviet captivity in Germany in 1956. Taken to war when his son was just 1 year old, he returns after a decade of separation. A farmer is photographed painting white stripes on her cow, a practical measure to increase the animal's visibility at night and prevent car accidents. This precaution was especially important during blackout conditions when road lighting was reduced or non-existent. In 1962, aircraft tester George Aird nearly lost his life when he was ejected sideways from his plane. During a test flight, Aird ejected from the aircraft, landing in a nursery near the crash site. The fall resulted in fractures in both legs, but Aird survived. This incident highlights the dangers and risks faced by test pilots during an era of rapid advancements in aviation. Amid the turmoil of the Soviet invasion in 1968, a photographer captures the exact moment Soviet tanks began to invade Prague. This photograph, taken under extreme risk, was miraculously smuggled out of Czechoslovakia, providing the world with a rare and direct look at the brutality of the invasion. A woman tests a stroller designed to be resistant to gas attacks in Hextable, England in 1938, shortly before the outbreak of World War II. This equipment was developed in response to the fear of chemical weapons attacks, a legacy of World War I. The image shows the precautionary measures adopted by the British government to protect civilians, especially children, against possible threats of poisonous gas. Beach volleyball, Venice Beach, California, June 1934. In 1935, in the Texas Dust Bowl, an imposing dust storm is captured approaching, about to engulf everything in its path. The image depicts the harsh reality faced by rural communities during this devastating period. Dust storms caused by poor agricultural practices and severe droughts turned vast areas into deserts, destroying crops and forcing thousands of families to abandon their land. In 1925, Smokey Buchanan of the West Palm Beach Police Force is photographed measuring Betty Fringle's swimsuit in Palm Beach. This record shows the strict enforcement of beachwear regulations introduced by censors of the time. The rules set specific standards for swimwear, reflecting the social and moral norms of the 1920s. Men observing the gigantic Moai statues of Easter Island in Polynesia in 1922. These imposing stone sculptures carved by the island's ancient inhabitants fascinated explorers and scientists with their mystery and grandeur. In 1928, Soviet peasants are photographed listening to the radio for the first time. We can see their reaction to the introduction of new communication technologies in rural Soviet life. The radio, a symbol of progress and modernity, began to connect isolated communities with the outside world, disseminating information, music, and propaganda. In 1904, a German immigrant couple is photographed with their 8 children on Ellis Island, United States. This was a family that, like many other immigrants, crossed the Atlantic in search of new opportunities and a better future. Ellis Island, the main entry point for millions of immigrants to America, symbolized hope and new beginnings. In Tokyo in 1935, a noodle delivery man is photographed pedaling with one hand while balancing dozens of boxes of soba noodles. Soba, a type of traditional Japanese noodle, was and still is a popular food in the country's culture. In 1885, explorers make an impressive discovery in the depths of the jungles of Honduras, an ancient Mayan statue. This archaeological find highlights the rich cultural and historical heritage of the Mayan civilization, which flourished in Mesoamerica. The discovery of the statue, hidden for centuries by dense vegetation, provided valuable insights into Mayan art, religion, and society. Rat catcher working in the sewers of Liverpool, United Kingdom. Employed in Europe to keep the rat population under control, these workers played a crucial role in preventing the spread of diseases to humans, most notably the Black Plague, and in protecting food supplies. The rat catchers, with their specialized skills, provided vital defense against the health and economic threats posed by rodent infestations. Dog handler reading a message brought by a messenger dog that had just swum across a canal in France during World War I in 1915. These war animals were vital to the armies, especially for communication in difficult and dangerous terrains where other methods might fail. Messenger dogs were trained to carry critical information across enemy lines and natural obstacles. Chester McDaffie in New York with his armored diving suit. In 1914, McDaffie built the first underwater armor equipped with ball bearings, an innovation that allowed greater mobility and safety at extreme depths. Using this revolutionary suit, he set a new American deep-sea diving record by descending to a depth of 212 feet. A couple next to their BMW Isetta microcar. This small and compact vehicle, which became popular in the years following World War II, symbolizes innovation and adaptation to the new economic needs of the time. The BMW Isetta, with its unique front door design and fuel efficiency, reflected the quest for accessible and practical mobility during a period of reconstruction and growth in the 1950s. Jewish prisoners are photographed after being liberated from a death train at the end of World War II in 1945. In the photo, we can see the moment of relief and freedom for the survivors of the horrors of the Holocaust. The death trains, used by the Nazis to transport Jews and other prisoners to concentration and extermination camps, symbolize the brutality and genocide of the Nazi era. The liberation of these prisoners marks the end of a period of indescribable suffering and the beginning of a painful path of recovery and remembrance to ensure it never happens again. A man holding a punt gun, a type of extremely large shotgun used for hunting ducks. This impressive weapon could kill more than 50 birds at once, reflecting the efficiency but also the brutality of the hunting methods of the time. The punt gun was often mounted on small boats called punts and used by commercial hunters to maximize their catches. However, due to the devastating impact on waterfowl populations, the use of this weapon was banned in the late 1960s. Wounded British soldier is photographed taking bandages from a Red Cross dog in 1915. These trained dogs played a vital role in transporting medical supplies and assisting wounded soldiers. Red Cross dogs, equipped with small backpacks containing bandages and other first aid materials, were sent to dangerous areas where human medics could not easily reach. Pearl diver from the Mississippi River, United States, preparing to dive into the river, using a car's gas tank as an improvised helmet in 1938. The improvised helmet served as an air chamber, allowing the diver to breathe while searching for pearls in the river's depths. Italian inventor Davide Cislagi testing his innovative one-wheeled motorcycle in France in 1933. The one-wheeled motorcycle, also known as a motorized unicycle, was designed to balance and move with a single tire, challenging traditional motorcycle design conventions. German airship Hindenburg, in flames after exploding at the U.S. Naval Station in New Jersey on May 6, 1937. This tragic disaster resulted in the deaths of 36 people, occurring at the end of a 60-hour transatlantic flight from Germany. The image of the Hindenburg in flames became a symbol of the fragility and dangers associated with airships, marking the end of the golden age of these giants of the sky. The disaster shocked the world and had a profound impact on aviation, leading to the decline of airships as a means of passenger transport. Chinese soldiers begging for their lives from a South Korean soldier in 1951 during the Korean War. This event, occurring amid the brutal conflict that divided the Korean peninsula, reflects the intensity and hopelessness of the fighting. Chinese forces had entered the war in support of the North, while South Korean troops, backed by the United States and other UN nations, fought to defend the South. This striking photograph shows British soldiers blinded by poisonous gas in line, walking towards a dressing station in April 1918. The use of poisonous gas, such as mustard gas, caused temporary or permanent blindness, severe burns, and respiratory difficulties. Worker carving one of the colossal faces of Mount Rushmore in the 1940s. This patriotic monument honors 4 United States presidents: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln, with each face measuring 18 meters high and carved into a mountain in the Black Hills of South Dakota, USA. The hard work of the sculptors and workers under the direction of Gutzon Borglum transformed the mountain into a lasting symbol of American pride and history. Teenagers from the 1950s, we can see the difference compared to today. Graves of a Catholic woman and her Protestant husband, separated by a wall in a cemetery in the Netherlands in 1888. Despite this physical barrier, the graves, positioned close together and extending hands in sculpture, symbolize the couple's love and union beyond religious differences. Brooklyn Bridge painters hanging from its cables in 1914. The Brooklyn Bridge, completed in 1883, is an engineering marvel and a symbol of progress. In 1902, child workers gathered in the streets of Philadelphia, forming a determined crowd. The child labor strike, led by union activist Mother Jones, highlighted the inhumane conditions faced by young workers in the city's factories and mines. These children, some as young as 6, demanded better working conditions and an end to child exploitation. The event attracted national attention, spurring labor reforms and changes in child labor protection laws in the United States. Disneyland Canteen, intended for theme park employees, where employees known as cast members took their breaks. A man, later identified as August Landmesser, refuses to salute Hitler during a ship launching ceremony in Hamburg, Germany in 1936. He had married a Jewish woman, Irma Eckler, which resulted in persecution due to Nazi racial laws. Landmesser was imprisoned twice and eventually separated from his family. His wife was sent to a concentration camp where she died, and Landmesser was forced to serve in the army, disappearing during the war. Elvis Presley was drafted for military service in March 1958, interrupting his music career at the height of his popularity. Elvis's decision to fulfill his military duty, rather than seeking a special exemption due to his fame, was widely admired and reinforced his positive public image. He was assigned to the 3rd Armored Division at Fort Hood, Texas, for basic training before being sent to serve in West Germany. During his time in the Army, Elvis performed his duties with dedication, earning respect from both his fellow soldiers and his superiors. This group of children took care of and fed this dog after its owner died in England in 1936. The children took turns feeding the dog, ensuring it had shelter and company. Even so, we can see the sadness in the dog's face, probably missing its owner, not knowing what had happened to him. A streetcar conductor in Seattle not allowing passengers on board without a mask during the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918. During this period, strict public health measures were implemented to contain the spread of the deadly virus. In Seattle, a streetcar conductor became famous for his firmness in enforcing these rules, refusing to allow any passenger to board without wearing a face mask. The Spanish flu was one of the most devastating pandemics in history, infecting approximately 1/3 of the world's population and causing millions of deaths. Austrian boy receiving new shoes during World War II. During World War II, amidst the destruction and deprivation that ravaged Europe, small acts of kindness brought moments of relief and hope. An iconic photograph from 1946 captured the pure joy of an Austrian boy upon receiving a new pair of shoes. At a time when most children faced shortages of food, clothing, and shelter, having a new pair of shoes was an unimaginable luxury. At the Berlin Olympics in 1936, Jesse Owens is captured crossing the finish line of the 200-meter race. In this historic moment, Owens broke the world record with a time of 20.7 seconds. The event took place under the eyes of Adolf Hitler's Nazi regime, which used the Games to promote the ideology of Aryan superiority. Owen's performance as an African-American athlete challenged these beliefs, becoming a milestone in sports history and racial issues. Native Americans between 1907 and 1913. The photograph depicts the practices, clothing, and landscapes of the indigenous peoples. This photo provides valuable insight into the traditions and way of life of Native Americans during a period of great change and challenges. New York City, 1957, a llama in Times Square. A child with measles in 1953 is seen sitting and eating alone during a coronation party in Chelsea, England. This was a social distancing practice adopted to contain the spread of contagious diseases even during festive events. The image, taken during the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II, highlights the public health measures in place at the time to prevent the spread of diseases. A fleet of Concords lined up at London's Heathrow Airport in 1986. These planes, icons of innovation and engineering, symbolize the pinnacle of high-speed commercial aviation. Operated mainly by British Airways and Air France, the Concords could cross the Atlantic in about 3 hours, redefining luxury and efficient air travel. In 1889, Alexandre Gustave Eiffel, on the left, is photographed exploring the newly completed Eiffel Tower with a friend. This historic moment captures the realization of one of the world's most iconic landmarks, designed by Eiffel for the Paris Universal Exposition. The tower, initially criticized, became a symbol of innovation and engineering, highlighting the technological advancement of the industrial era. Photo of the Statue of Liberty's face before it was assembled into its final version. In 1885, the Statue of Liberty arrived in New York City as a monumental gift from the people of France. The colossal neoclassical structure, composed of 350 individual pieces, was meticulously unpacked and assembled over 4 months. This complex assembly took place on Bedloe's Island, now Liberty Island, symbolizing Franco-American friendship and the celebration of freedom and democracy. On October 1, 1940, in Canada, a poignant photograph captures a painful farewell moment. A son running after his father as he marched with the army, going to World War II. Family separations marked the lives of many during the global conflict. Italian troops lifting a gun, a dog, and a soldier on a mountain in the Italian Alps. This image highlights the extreme challenges faced by soldiers in the harsh conditions of the Alpine mountains. The inhospitable terrain required complex logistics and the use of animals to transport equipment and supplies. Manhattan, New York, circa 1917. A horse-drawn carriage and a modern streetcar side by side. This image illustrates a moment of transition in urban transportation history, where traditional and innovative methods shared the busy city streets. The streetcar, a symbol of progress and modernity, represented the evolution of public transportation infrastructure, while the horse-drawn carriage remained a vestige of an earlier era. French actress Brigitte Bardot, at 19, is captured enjoying the sun on a beach in Cannes. In 1953, Cannes was already known for its glamour and its famous film festival, attracting celebrities and artists from around the world. This image shows Bardot at the beginning of her career, before becoming an international icon of cinema and fashion. A lady with a spinning wheel in Ireland is depicted in an 1890 image. The spinning wheel, an essential device for spinning fiber threads, played a crucial role in the cotton textile industry before the Industrial Revolution. This tool allowed the manual production of threads which were later woven into fabrics. This was a moment in rural Irish life where traditional practices were still common, even with the advent of industrial machines. The British airship R-33 is seen in its hangar, preparing for its first flight at an aerodrome in North Yorkshire, England. In 1919, this imposing airship represented a milestone in British aviation, being one of the largest and most advanced of its time. We can see the grandeur and complexity of the aircraft, highlighting the technological advances of the post-World War I period. Arnold Schwarzenegger, at his physical peak in the 1960s. During this period, Schwarzenegger was establishing himself as a force in the bodybuilding world, winning important titles such as Mr. Universe. This phase marked the beginning of a multifaceted career that would include successes as an actor in Hollywood, businessman, and politician. British model Jenny Clare is seen posing next to her Austin Mini car in London during the 1970s. We can see the style and fashion of the time, reflecting the popularity of the iconic Austin Mini, a symbol of British practicality and design. A young woman is photographed doing the limbo dance at a nightclub in Los Angeles around 1964. Although limbo became popular in the 1950s, it continued to be an attraction at social events and clubs in the 60s. The dance, originating from Trinidad and Tobago, involves participants leaning backward to pass under a horizontal bar that is progressively lowered. A horse-drawn carriage passing through a strategically cut section of the base of a giant sequoia in the Sierra Nevada mountains, California, USA. In 1879, this image shows a common practice of the time, where tunnels were carved into the enormous trees to demonstrate their colossal size and attract tourists. The sequoias, some of the oldest and tallest trees in the world, were symbols of California's natural grandeur. Marilyn Monroe, the iconic American actress, model, and singer, relaxing on a beach in the USA. In the 1950s, Monroe was at the height of her career, becoming a symbol of Hollywood beauty and glamour. U.S. Navy airship hovering over the Atlantic, searching for any sign of enemy submarines during World War II, in June 1943. At that time, the use of airships was common as part of the patrol and surveillance strategy, essential to protecting Allied shipping routes from German submarine attacks. Airships, with their extended flight capability and superior visibility, played a crucial role in detecting and neutralizing submarine threats, significantly contributing to the war efforts in the Atlantic theater. American World War II veterans at Arlington National Cemetery in 1951, United States. This image captures a moment of reflection and homage, where veterans pay tribute to their fallen comrades. Arlington, one of the most revered military cemeteries in the country, symbolizes the sacrifice and bravery of the soldiers who served in the armed forces. Actress Susan Peters riding a bicycle in California. In 1942, at 18, Peters was discovered by Hollywood and quickly became a rising star. Her promising career, however, was tragically interrupted at 24 when she was paralyzed in an accident with her own hunting gun. Struggling against the challenges of paralysis, Peters continued to act sporadically, but her health declined, leading to her death from kidney failure at 31. More than 100 people gather around a giant sequoia in California, creating an impressive image that highlights the magnitude of these ancient trees in 1917. The sequoias, some of the largest and oldest trees in the world, are true natural monuments. An immigrant family in the USA, after having just passed the country's strict entry examination, looking hopefully at the New York skyline while awaiting the government ferry on August 13, 1925. Thousands of New Yorkers are photographed following the news of D-Day on the electronic ticker of the New York Times building on the morning of June 6, 1944. When the sun rose in New York City, the first and second waves of American and Allied troops had already landed under intense German fire on the beaches of Normandy. This landmark moment of World War II, known as D-Day, was a crucial turning point in the fight against Nazi forces. In the 1970s, excavations of the Sphinx statue in Giza, near Cairo, Egypt, revealed significant details of this iconic monument. The restoration and preservation works were fundamental in better understanding the history and architecture of this ancient wonder. The Sphinx, with its majestic pharaoh head and lion body, symbolizes the grandeur and mystery of Egyptian civilization. An American World War II veteran with a disability is photographed looking at the Golden Gate Bridge with his son in California, USA, in 1959. The bridge, completed in 1937, represents American engineering progress. An Italian monk wearing a funeral mask in 1892. Funeral masks were often used in ceremonies to honor the dead, symbolizing the passage to the afterlife and helping to preserve the memory of the deceased. A group of Soviet students presented a U.S. ambassador with a carved American seal as a gesture of friendship in 1945. The ambassador, delighted with the symbolic gift, hung the seal in his office. However, 7 years later, in 1952, it was discovered that the gift contained a listening device. This device, known as the Thing, was a sophisticated espionage tool developed by the KGB, which allowed conversations in the ambassador's office to be monitored without his knowledge. A carrier pigeon is photographed being released from a watch on the side of a British tank on August 9, 1918. This was a crucial communication moment in combat times, highlighting the vital role of carrier pigeons in message transmission. In a period when radio communication was still limited and often interrupted, pigeons offered a reliable way to transmit strategic information between the front lines and rear commands. Unknown soldier with the phrase, "War is hell," written on his helmet in 1965 during the Vietnam War. Organizers of the Boston Marathon trying to stop Catherine Switzer from participating in the race in 1967. Despite their efforts, Switzer became the first woman to complete the marathon. Switzer, who registered with her initials KV Switzer to avoid being recognized as a woman, defied the rules and proved that women were capable of competing in long-distance races. Albert Einstein, in the summer of 1939, in Nassau Point, Long Island, New York, shortly before the turmoil of World War II. During this period, Einstein was deeply involved in scientific and political issues, including his famous letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, which warned of the potential development of nuclear weapons by Nazi Germany. Nikola Tesla, in his laboratory next to his magnifying transmitter in Colorado Springs in 1899. Tesla is in the midst of one of his revolutionary experiments with electricity and wireless energy transmission. The magnifying transmitter, an advanced version of the Tesla coil, was designed to explore the possibility of transmitting electricity through the atmosphere without wires. Actress Audrey Hepburn is photographed in a supermarket in Beverly Hills, accompanied by her pet deer, IP, in 1958. Hepburn adopted IP while filming the movie Green Mansions, and the deer became a close companion. Painters painting the Eiffel Tower without any apparent safety equipment, 1932. The Eiffel Tower, built in 1889, requires regular maintenance to preserve its iron structure. The painters, suspended at dizzying heights and exposed to the elements, reflect the risky working conditions of the time, before the implementation of modern strict safety standards. Norway receiving its first delivery of bananas, a landmark event that symbolized the globalization of trade and the introduction of new exotic products to the country. Before this date, bananas were unknown to most Norwegians, and their arrival brought a new dimension to the local market. The iconic photo, Easter Eggs for Hitler, shows Allied soldiers with bombs bearing messages addressed to Adolf Hitler. These bombs, often decorated with disdainful words, were intended to boost the morale of Allied troops and demoralize the Nazi enemy during the final months of World War II. The practice of inscribing messages on bombs was a form of psychological propaganda to boost the esteem of American troops. Coca-Cola arrived in France, marking a significant moment in the global expansion of the American brand in 1950. This introduction represented not only the arrival of a new beverage, but also the penetration of American culture into post-World War II Europe. Coca-Cola, already an icon in the United States, quickly gained popularity among the French. Photo of Che Guevara and Fidel Castro fishing in 1960. They became known as the two Cuban revolutionary leaders, being central to the Cuban Revolution and the subsequent socialist transformation of Cuba. The revolution, which culminated in 1959, led to the overthrow of Fulgencio Batista's regime and the establishment of a communist government led by Castro, with Guevara playing key roles as a military commander and ideological figure. Into the jaws of death, one of the most iconic photographs of D-Day taken on June 6, 1944, during the Normandy invasion in World War II. Captured by photographer Robert F. Sargent, the image shows American soldiers disembarking from a Higgins transport boat, advancing towards Omaha Beach under intense enemy fire. D-Day marked the beginning of the liberation of Nazi-occupied Europe and was a crucial turning point in the war. A girl sitting with her doll in the ruins of her bombed-out home in London in 1940. This photo was taken during the Blitz, the intense air raid carried out by Nazi Germany against the United Kingdom during World War II. 3 men are photographed running the marathon at the first modern Olympic Games, held in Athens, Greece, in 1896. The Olympic Games that year brought together athletes from various nations, competing in several sports. The marathon, with its 40-kilometer, approximately 25-mile course, was one of the most challenging and exciting events. The race was won by Greek Spiridon Louis, who became a national hero. Group of women painting propaganda posters in Port Washington, New York in 1942. Propaganda posters were a vital tool for mobilizing public support, encouraging the purchase of war bonds, promoting the rationing of food and other resources, and maintaining public morale. George Blind, a member of the French Resistance, smiling at a German firing squad in 1944. George Blind was part of the French Resistance, an underground movement that fought against the German occupation, carrying out acts of sabotage, espionage, and support for the Allies. George Blind's smile in the face of death shows moral resistance and the indomitable will to fight against oppression. Facade inspectors hanging above the city's mist. They are suspended on platforms or safety harnesses, carefully examining the structural integrity of a building. This job was essential to ensure the safety of buildings, especially during a time of rapid urban expansion and skyscraper construction. Women mocking a sign on Miami Beach that required full bathing suits in Florida in 1934. A mother waiting for news of her son during the arrival of a World War II prisoner in her town. In the left corner of the image, the mother shows the prisoner of war a photo of her son missing in action during the conflict, hoping to obtain any information about his whereabouts. This shows us the anguish and hope that permeated the lives of families during and after the war. Unfortunately, the fate of the young man remains unknown. Archaeologists discovered the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun in the Valley of the Kings, Egypt, finding the unbroken seal that had remained untouched for 3,245 years. This discovery in 1922 was led by Howard Carter and is one of the most significant in archaeological history. The intact seal indicated that the tomb had not been violated by looters, preserving an invaluable treasure of artifacts and information about life and death in ancient Egyptian civilization. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb provided an unprecedented insight into the funerary rituals and power of ancient Egypt, and the unbroken seal became a symbol of the durability and mystery of this ancient civilization. In 1862, Edgware Road Station in London witnessed the world's first subway trip. This inaugural journey marked the beginning of a new and revolutionary urban transportation system. The London Underground, known as the Tube, was a milestone in civil engineering and urban infrastructure, providing an innovative solution at the time for traffic congestion problems in the growing metropolis. The first line, operated by the Metropolitan Railway, connected Paddington to Farringdon and was initially powered by steam locomotives. In December 1961, the Beatles played to just 18 people at the Aldershot Club in England. This event shows the band's meteoric trajectory, which just a year and a half later would become a global sensation and music superstars. At that time, the Beatles, composed of John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, were still in their early steps, perfecting their sound and performance. Photo of the Titanic passenger liner in Southampton, England, shortly before departing on its maiden voyage to New York on April 10, 1912. In the photo, we can see the grandeur and luxury of the Titanic, which was considered the largest and most advanced ship of its time. Built by the White Star Line, the Titanic symbolized the innovation and progress of early 20th century naval engineering. The last known photo of the Titanic above water was taken in 1912, before its fateful maiden voyage. This ship, considered a marvel of modern engineering of its time, departed from Southampton, England, towards New York. The photograph captures the imposing ocean liner in its full state, shortly before it collided with an iceberg and sank in the North Atlantic. The disaster resulted in the deaths of over 1,500 people and left a lasting legacy in maritime history. Young newsboy Ned Parfitt selling the evening paper that carried the devastating news that the Titanic had sunk the night before on April 16, 1912. Parfitt holds a copy of the paper with the headline about the tragedy. The Titanic, the largest and most luxurious passenger ship of its time, departed from Southampton on its maiden voyage on April 10, 1912. However, the ship collided with an iceberg and sank in the North Atlantic on the night of April 14 to 15, resulting in the deaths of over 1,500 people. The news of its sinking spread quickly, causing shock and sadness worldwide. Women delivering ice blocks during World War I in 1918. With many men on the front lines, women took on various traditionally male roles, including physically demanding jobs like ice delivery. At that time, before the popularization of electric refrigerators, ice blocks were essential for preserving food and medicine. Ice delivery women played a crucial role in urban life, ensuring that households and businesses could keep perishable products fresh. In 1900, U.S. cavalry soldiers are seen posing in front of the towering sequoia known as the Grizzly Giant in Yosemite National Park. This tree, one of the park's most famous and oldest, still stands today. The Grizzly Giant remains a living testament to the natural grandeur and history of the park. Chicago, 1948. The Great Depression still haunted the United States, and the Chalafou family was a reflection of this harsh reality. Ray, an unemployed truck driver, and Lucille, his wife, faced eviction. Desperate, they put their 4 children up for sale. The iconic photo of the for sale sign in the yard with the children sitting on the steps shocked the country. But the story goes beyond the image. Extreme poverty led to drastic decisions, and the children's fate was marked by abuse and suffering. Ray Ann, sold and abused. Milton, enslaved on a farm, and Lana, whose fate remained obscure. Only Sue Ellen found a stable adoptive home. Decades later, in old age, Ray Ann and Sue Ellen reunited, revealing their truths. "I was sold for $2 so my mother could play bingo," Ray Ann lamented, "and because her boyfriend didn't want us." Sue Ellen, bitter, stated about their mother, "She deserves to be burning in hell." The sisters' words showed the pain and trauma of a stolen childhood, a sad legacy of the poverty and despair that marked the Chalafou family's history. An unauthorized photo captures Joseph Stalin at the exact moment he was informed that German armies were about to take Kiev during World War II in August 1941. We can see the tension and concern on the Soviet leader's face, reflecting the gravity of the situation. The imminent fall of Kiev represented a significant threat to the Soviet Union, as it marked a crucial advance of Nazi forces on the Eastern Front. German civilian looking at a large poster of Joseph Stalin in central Berlin after the end of World War II in Europe on June 3, 1945. This image symbolizes the new political and military reality that the city and country faced after the Nazi defeat. Berlin, divided among the Allies, was under occupation, and the presence of Stalin's poster reflected the significant influence of the Soviet Union in the region. In August 1969, this was the immense crowd present at the Woodstock Music Festival held in Bethel, New York. This historic event, officially known as the Woodstock Music and Art Fair, attracted about 400,000 people and became a symbol of the 60s counterculture and the hippie movement.